The Witness is something I haven't seen before, a Metroidvania of the mind. I've played it beyond the main ending and continued into the optional stuff, but there are still a lot of closed doors I'm nowhere near done. It's a very personal game, both in the experiences we have playing it, and in the messages we take away from it. It's taken me a while to figure out how, but I want to talk about these things today. Here's a warning though, this video will contain some mild spoilers. I'll be showing some views into areas you don't get to see until the late game, some puzzle solutions will appear on screen but won't be dwelt upon, and I'll be revealing one surprise that comes relatively early on. I won't talk about any puzzle mechanics, this video won't help you if you're stuck, but if you're particularly spoiler averse and haven't played the game, I recommend not watching any further. Go and watch Chris Franklin's channel, he's much better at this anyway. In its most distilled form, The Witness is a game set on an island filled with puzzle panels, each of which involves tracing a path and finding a solution that satisfies one or more requirements, sometimes expressed in a symbolic language you have to learn, and sometimes by other ingenious means. That's a pretty dry way of putting it, when the truth of it is that the game's deep and broad and methodical exploration of this possibility space produces moment after moment of astonishment and delight. There are 650 puzzles in this game, and I haven't seen any that I classify as filler. Virtually every one of them either provides new information, steps up the difficulty, or requires a new way of thinking. Each one justifies its existence as a necessary part of a bigger picture. There are new and novel twists on the formula everywhere. It's such a polished and taut experience, no doubt due to the 7 years of work put into it by Jonathan Blow and his small team. Any reservations about the price are blown away by the sheer quality and quantity on offer here. It's a game that teaches you how to play without words. Yes, there are voice recordings of quotations about science and spirituality, but they're not tutorials. There are no explicit instructions, nor is there a map or any navigational aid pointing you along some linear progression. As you explore the island, halted by gates with panels you don't yet understand, you'll eventually stumble upon the simple puzzles that unlock your understanding of a particular symbol and allow you to progress. They can take a while to find, but I really appreciated the lack of signposting here. And it's this structure that leads to the realization that The Witness is a Metroidvania, where the unlocks happen inside your brain, when you're able to perceive and understand things you couldn't before. This is one of the reasons why you shouldn't be tempted to use a walkthrough for this game, even if you're usually fine with it, because if you cheat your way past one puzzle without properly understanding what it is you've done, you're not going to have the mental keys to open the doors that follow. The island on which the game takes place is designed to the tiniest detail. Despite an impressionistic art style and sometimes dreamlike spaces, there's a sense of real place here that very few games ever get close to invoking. The island's full of impressive touches, optical illusions, and forced perspective tricks, such as these roots that seem from above look perfectly normal, but from the underside form into a perfect pair of koi carp, or the tree that supports this burned out treehouse. When you stand here, you see this figure. Or this statue in the bay which from a single viewpoint gains a mane of red hair from the strata in the desert rock. The game is filled with these details, and none of them have anything to do with the puzzles. They're just beautiful surprises to discover. Seriously, this whole island is just amazing. It's up there with the best environments ever created for games. The puzzles themselves start trivial but become very complex. This is the first time in years that I've played a game with a stack of graph paper in front of me. I'm the sort of nerd who loves any excuse to do that, and they don't come around very often. Anyway, I want to get into my personal experiences with the game, and then share my interpretation of Jonathan Blow's intentions, which, it may be no surprise to those who know his work, are a little cryptic and open to debate. So in my playthrough I found the Treehouse Village was the toughest area to crack. There are still a few puzzles here that I haven't done, though I did reach the laser eventually. The area that impressed me the most was the archaeological dig. The ingenuity required to make these puzzles work at all is mind-boggling to me. Panels, light sources, and the player's position all having to coordinate precisely to produce puzzles that are neither too challenging nor too trivial. It's incredibly impressive, and I've no idea how Blow even started to design it. Inside the mountain, this puzzle here isn't that difficult, at least not compared to some of the things that came after it. But somehow I completely convinced myself that it was unsolvable, a feeling made even more certain by this audio log that you can find next to it.
Therefore, I thank you, my God, because you make clear to me that there is no other way of approaching you, except that which to all humans, even to the most learned philosophers, seems wholly inaccessible and impossible.
So I spent way more time trying to find a way around this puzzle, which of course doesn't exist, than I spent solving it. I'm not proud of that mistake. This big ground floor meta puzzle stumped me for literally weeks, making paper cutouts to try to solve it, getting annoyed that the solutions that I thought I'd found weren't working, until I realised the subtle error that I made. The moment that really caught me off guard was when this movie played. But after I got over my shock at seeing an old James Burke clip appear in a game, and if you aren't familiar with him, add connections to the list of stuff you need to watch, his words here caught my attention.
Thanks to science and technology, they have begun to know that they don't know so much, and that if they are to have more say in what happens to their lives, more freedom to develop their abilities to the full, they have to be helped towards that knowledge that they know exists and that they don't possess. And by help towards that knowledge, I don't mean give everybody a computer and say, help yourself. Where would you even start? No, I mean trying to find ways to translate the knowledge, to teach us to ask the right questions.
This is important because I think that this right here is Jonathan Blow's mission statement for this game. Here's an excerpt from a 2011 Jonathan Blow interview with Michael Abbott on the Brainy Gamer podcast. I've made some edits for brevity, the link to the full episode is in the description.
This sort of study that Feynman's talking about in this quote is part of the heart of the game. And so when you look at the puzzles in The Witness, they are in many ways sort of the answers to what if questions, but the what ifs being asked are things that are already true about our real world. So it's not so much what if anymore, but like, look what happens when, look what happens when perspective is used in a certain way, because that's just what happens in 3D space, right? Mm-hmm. Look what happens when light travels in a straight line and then reflects off surfaces and creates glare. So there's something, and this goes to the title of the game, there's something about your role as the player as being an observer of these things.
The Witness is like many puzzle games in that it requires learning and internalising rules and recognising the right inference to make with the information you have available. But it's more than that. It's a toolkit for exploring or witnessing the physical properties of the real world. Light, colour, material, perspective. It's a practical course in observation and introductory physics that's disguised as a brilliant puzzle game. But that's the other reason you should solve the puzzles yourself rather than resort to a walkthrough. Cheat, and you're not just missing out on some of the gameplay, you're missing the entire point of a game that's trying to teach you to ask the right questions, trying to guide you through the process of solving puzzles into a way of thinking, a way of seeing, and a better understanding of particular fields of human knowledge. That's an audacious goal for a video game, but I think it succeeds. My interpretation of this game is incomplete. Some of the parts I haven't yet unlocked may hold more secrets and revelations, and the remaining puzzles are going to be difficult. Solving everything in the game may take me years, or it may be completely beyond me. But I'm going to do it at my own pace, without anybody's help. Because in a game where the solving process is, in more ways than one, the point, doing it any other way just wouldn't be right. I'm Chris, thanks for stopping by.